During the Texas winter storm of 2021, the state's power grid came terrifyingly close to a total collapse. How close? According to grid operators, had they not started manually shutting off power to millions, the entire system was just a handful of minutes from a cascading failure that could have caused a statewide blackout for weeks or even months. This wasn't some movie plot. It was a terrifying reality. A warning of just how close all of us are to the lights going out for good. We live in a world that runs on electricity. It is the invisible force behind our homes, our economies, our entire way of life. We just flick a switch and the lights come on. We don't even think about it. But the system delivering this power is a fragile, interconnected machine, and its pulse is more delicate than we realize. That pulse is called grid frequency. In North America, it beats at a steady 60 Hz. As long as the amount of power being generated perfectly matches the amount being consumed, that pulse is stable. But when that balance breaks, when demand suddenly overwhelms supply, the pulse starts to falter. The frequency drops. And if it drops too low for too long, the system dies. This is a minute-by-minute look at how our planet could be plunged into darkness, and how a fuel apocalypse could cause the world as we know it to go dark. Overnight, it almost always starts with a single point of failure, a small event that triggers a cascade. During the 2021 Texas crisis, that trigger was an unprecedented cold snap. The state's energy infrastructure, from natural gas pipelines to wind turbines, just wasn't built for that kind of cold. As people cranked up their heaters, demand for power skyrocketed, and generators started tripping offline one by one. At ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, grid operators watched their screens in horror. With hundreds of generators failing, the balance between supply and demand was shattered. The grid's frequency, its very heartbeat, began a terrifying plunge. A stable frequency means a healthy grid. But as Texas's power plants failed, demand far outstripped the available supply. This forces the remaining generators to work harder, which slows their rotation and drops the grid's frequency. If that frequency stays below a critical threshold in Texas, it is about 59.4 Hz for just 9 minutes. Automatic safety systems are designed to trip every single power source offline to prevent catastrophic equipment damage. That is a cascading failure. On that day in February, operators were only minutes away from that point of no return. They had to make an impossible choice: manually cut power to millions in rolling blackouts, to slash demand, or risk the entire grid collapsing into a blackout that could last for months. They chose to cut the power, an act that saved the grid but created a humanitarian crisis. But what if they'd been a few minutes slower? What does a total collapse actually look like? For that, we turn to the 1989 Quebec blackout. On March 13th of that year, a massive solar storm slammed into Earth's magnetic field. These storms create powerful electrical currents in the ground, and in Quebec, those currents found an easy path: the province's long transmission lines. The sudden surge of current overloaded the grid's protective systems. Safety relays designed to prevent this exact thing tripped one after another. The entire Quebec power grid collapsed in less than 90 seconds. 6 million people were plunged into darkness. While power was restored for most within 9 hours, some areas remained dark for days. That's how fast it can happen. Not in hours, but in seconds. A single anomaly creates a domino effect that takes down an entire system before human operators can react. One line overloads and trips, shifting its burden to its neighbors. Those neighbors, now carrying an impossible load, trip as well. This wave of failures spreads across the grid at nearly the speed of light, bringing the intricate dance of modern life to a sudden, silent halt. The first few minutes are pure chaos, but the first 24 hours are when the true scale of the apocalypse becomes clear. Without electricity, every pillar of modern society starts to crumble. Traffic signals go dark, turning intersections into deadly free-for-alls. Trains and subways stall on their tracks. Communication networks are next to go. Cell towers have backup batteries, but they're only designed to last a few hours. Soon, the ability to call for help or get information vanishes. Commerce freezes. Credit card networks are offline. Cash registers are just useless bricks. Refrigeration in grocery stores fails, meaning food starts spoiling within hours. Banks are just buildings. ATMs are dark. Most critically, water pressure starts to drop. Municipal water systems use electric pumps to move water. As water towers empty and those pumps fail, taps will run dry for millions, often within 24 to 72 hours. Hospitals, which seem like the last bastions of technology, switch to their emergency generators. But that is a temporary fix. Their fuel is limited, and the supply chains needed to get more are now completely broken. This isn't science fiction. This is a documented, analyzed risk. If you are finding this breakdown of our modern world's fragility both terrifying and fascinating, take a moment to subscribe and hit the bell. We are dedicated to exploring the hidden systems that run our world and the very real dangers they face. If you think getting the power back is as simple as flipping a few switches, think again. Restoring a grid from a total collapse. A black start is one of the most difficult challenges in all of engineering. Here is the problem: large power plants, the ones that provide most of our energy, need electricity from the grid just to restart. It is a classic chicken and egg scenario. You can't start the power plants without power. That is where black start resources are supposed to come in. These are smaller, specialized generators that can start without an external power source. The plan is to use them to create small islands of power. They energize a tiny section of the grid, which is then used to restart a bigger nearby power plant. That plant helps start the next one, and so on. This process is repeated, island by island, until they can all be synchronized and reconnected. It is a delicate, painstaking process. If it is rushed, you risk another imbalance and a second collapse. And this all assumes the equipment isn't damaged. In a real collapse, transformers can be fried and transmission lines destroyed. How long could it take? ERCOT officials publicly stated that if the Texas grid had collapsed in 2021, a full recovery could have taken weeks or even months. Here is the truly terrifying part. During that storm, reports indicated that a shocking majority of Texas's designated black start units, as high as 82%, failed to operate when needed. The very tools designed to save the grid in a doomsday scenario weren't available. The cost of an event like this is almost impossible to imagine. We got a glimpse from the Texas crisis, and it is a grim picture, even with a total collapse being averted. The managed blackouts had devastating consequences. The official death toll from the 2021 storm and power crisis is 246 people, though independent studies suggest the true number could be as high as 700. People died from hypothermia, from house fires and carbon monoxide poisoning trying to stay warm, and from failures in medical equipment. The economic damage was estimated to be well over $100 billion, making it one of the costliest disasters in the state's history. And that was a crisis that was avoided. A full nationwide collapse lasting for weeks would be an extinction-level event for our economy. Factories would halt, supply chains would evaporate, and public health would collapse. Without refrigeration, clean water, or sanitation, diseases would spread. Without communication or transportation, society itself would begin to unravel. The financial cost would be in the trillions, but the human cost would be immeasurable. We're standing on the shoulders of a technological giant, a system so vast that almost no one truly grasps all its vulnerabilities. From the handful of minutes that separated Texas from a months-long blackout, to the 90 seconds it took a solar storm to plunge Quebec into darkness, the warnings are crystal clear. Our civilization is built on a foundation of constant, uninterrupted power. We've created a system that is incredibly powerful but dangerously brittle. The fuel apocalypse won't necessarily be loud and explosive. It might just start with a flicker, a faltering frequency on a screen in a control room, the last heartbeat of a dying world. It's a silent, creeping darkness, and we are nowhere near prepared for it.